They turned out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Hello, Tim.
Well, all right.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to Dismembering Horror, episode 149 of Dismembering Horror, the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie, and
myself, Tim Aslin.
That's right. We talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, anything else we found interesting or noteworthy about a horror film. We are sorry we cannot hear what worked or did not work for you, but that's just how this works. But please tell us someday.
Yeah.
Tell us after the fact. We're just sorry you can't be here, even though you're here. And we are on a quest for the sight unseen. We are on a dearthly dive into the darkness. We like to dig up all that can be uniquely dug up from viewing and discussing horror. And we traveled back to one of our favorite decades for this week's film, Night of the Demons from 1988.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure one of us put this in the hat after watching In Search of Darkness Part 1.
For sure. I don't know if it was me or you, but yes.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Exactly. How's it going, Tim? I feel like we just crossed from not summer to summer here in this weekend.
Seriously.
It's hot now.
Yeah.
We're in hot LA. That's right. We're recording live from Hollywood, baby. So greetings from Hollywood, whether you be in Berlin, Kentucky, and anywhere in between. We're glad you're here.
Where this film was filmed.
Yes, we're where this film was filmed in Los Angeles, including that beautiful mansion that they had a shot of, right?
Yeah.
Great. Well, to get into it, Tim, do you have anything else, or do you want to watch the trailer here?
Do I have anything else? No, I don't think so.
Great. Well, let's watch the trailer then for, as I said, from 1988, Night of the Demons.
A full moon. A spooky, deserted mansion. Halloween night.
All right, dudes! Anti-dusters! Let's party!
10 kids. All they want to do is raise a little hell. Now, as long as they live, they'll wonder what's gotten into them. Night of the Demons.
Night of the Demons, directed by Kevin S. Tenney, written by Joe Augustyn. Augustyn. Those guys. Great. Well,
Yeah,
Tim.
So great. So great.
Who wants to go first, Tim, for our rating system?
Sucks. It's a stream, though. You know?
So you want to go first?
I'll
Okay.
go first. I just want to say that this movie is terrible, but it's the most quintessential in my proverbial or hypothetical party that I'll have one day. This is the movie that you put on with no sound in the background, just playing
Or some sound.
Nope.
Okay.
It's just on.
Yeah.
This
I
is
see
it.
that. Yeah.
This is the one. But this movie sucks.
So then would you tell yourself to avoid it, stream it, rent it, or buy it? And pointing out, you would need to do one of the later two
I
probably
know.
for the party.
I know. Oh, God. I mean, I guess stream it. I mean, I hope you could stream it. I would not, I don't want to spend money on this thing. Not even for a party. You know what I would do? I would ask somebody else who likes this movie to bring it.
Mm-hmm. And those are the kind of people you want at this party anyways.
Right, exactly.
Great. So you still mad respect to the Night of the Demon fans, right?
Yeah, I get it. I know a few people who are like, it's my favorite. I'm like, what? Okay. Cool.
I thought this could be, so I thought this could really be your cup of tea, Tim. I'll be curious to hear what it's missing.
It's got some of the things, but
I feel like for you,
just never gets there.
It has to actually have good like aspects too.
It does. I don't think this movie is devoid of good aspects,
but in certain areas,
yes, for sure.
Okay, so for my rating, for our rating system, I would tell myself. I kept telling myself during it. I don't know. I kept going back and forth. I was a buy it pretty much until the last chunk when I wanted to say rent it more. Just maybe it just slowed down for me a little at the end. Or like it wasn't the big payoff that I was wanting or something.
That's a huge part of my
But
issue.
at the same time, expectations won't be there a second time. And like,
yeah,
I don't know. I'll save it for what worked, but there's a lot that really, really worked for me in this movie that like is pretty imitable. Yeah, you couldn't imitate it if you tried.
Got it.
So to get into that then, well, we got to do our summary. Get that out of the way.
Is there really a summary for this movie?
Of course.
Some 28-year-olds playing teenagers decide to get invited to go to a Halloween party by two women or two friends of theirs, I guess, at a what's it called?
Whole House.
Yeah, Whole House.
Not Hell House or Hill House.
Right.
Whole House.
And it's a mortuary. Mortuary?
Yep.
Yeah. Where, dead people used to go. Before they got to the cemetery, they went here. Maybe they got cremated there. We'll find out. So it's abandoned. It's haunted, supposedly. The two girls who are friends, their plan is to scare everybody. They invite only the cliches of high schoolers from the 80s.
Yes!
Our lead, I guess, is... I don't even remember her name, my God.
Judy.
Oh, right, Judy.
Alice in Wonderland.
That's right. So she's going as Alice from Alice in Wonderland. That's her costume. And then you've got like the big dude who's just the worst human ever.
Stooge.
Yeah.
Who wears the pig nose.
Yeah. He's got an anarchy symbol on his... He's sort of like, I guess he's sort of the punk rock guy. If you were to classify them.
There's usually like the quote unquote slob character for these things.
Yeah. So in his car, there's him, a girl who's so super nondescript who just gets browbeaten by Stooge constantly and called a bitch over and over again, who doesn't want to be there. And the second to last. Oh no, he survives. The black guy. I mean, the token. This movie is just a cliche. But the token black guy, whose name is Gary? No, Roger. So Roger. So that's one trio, and then we've got Judy and her boyfriend, Jay. And then they bring Max and Franny, who are the most non-character characters you could imagine. Like, I don't even know what to think of them. I guess Max is sort of the, like, nerd?
Yeah, he's just a weird, like, default.
Yeah. And his girlfriend, Franny, is the token Asian.
Which we usually don't get a lot of token Asians at all.
That's true. But like, really they've two-dimensionalized everybody in a pretty aggressive way, I think.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone, not just the tokens.
No, everyone. And then that's it, right? Like, and then the two girls who are throwing the party.
Angela's the like gothy one. She's into all this stuff. She's the one who holds the seance and invites everyone.
And then the other friend is, what's the other friend?
Suzanne.
Oh, right. Suzanne,
Played
who's
by
sort of like
Linnea Quigley.
Overly concerned about her looks. So she would be, I would guess, the kind of the girly girl.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, that's your, am I missing somebody? That doesn't feel like very many people, but I guess that, oh no. And then Sal. So Sal is the bad boy.
Oh, right. Hey, come on. This is the total like.
It is incredible to me. This is off topic, sort of, but like it's incredible to me how much that guy. I think that guy's name is William Gallo. I think that's the actor. I might be wrong. But,
yes.
He looks exactly like the guy from 21 Jump Street, not Johnny Depp, the other one.
Jonah Hill?
No, not the movie. I mean, although he is in the movie. The TV show. So
I've never
his
seen
name is oh damn it. What is his name? Richard Grieco.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember Richard Grieco back
I
in the day?
never saw the show, so.
Oh, okay. So Richard Grieco is like in the 80s was like he sort of had this he's borderline a cliche too now, I guess, but he was like the tough Italian guy, but he was like the guy. He was like the young, pretty, tough Italian, with like a heart of gold kind of thing.
It's just so funny then that the guy who looks like him in this movie is the character's name. It's just so perfect. It says it all about this movie. Sal Romero. Like
right. It's like it's so amazing how cliched it is. And like I guess this is this is off. We're not in the summary anymore, apparently. But to me, it's interesting that they're sort of they're going really far back into the sort of the archetypes, right? But they're using the Hollywood versions of these, right? Like by making the Italian tough guy, although the tough guy thing, maybe not so much, but like Sal Romero, he's I think kind of a slight reference to like Sal Mineo, who was that kind of, he wasn't really a tough guy, but he was the Italian kid, anyway, God, what's the movie about? Oh yeah, they open a portal to hell, I guess, accidentally. They have a seance. They open up a portal somehow. A demon gets unleashed and then starts one by one possessing them, but collectively.
Yep.
And antics ensue. I mean, it's just like Judy has to run away from them.
Yep.
That's it.
What more could you ask for, I say?
I don't know. A story?
What do you mean? That is the story.
I mean, like, I don't know, man. Something more.
Well, let's find
characters out. that make sense. I don't know.
That would ruin this movie for me.
I guess so. Some intrigue. We'll get into it.
Well, then let's get into it. All right.
There's one element that I forgot to mention that's so critical to this movie, to the story.
Yeah.
On this property, there is a brick wall that surrounds the mansion or the mortuary, whatever. And the legend is that wall was built on a creek, essentially, a stream, whatever. And that is the boundary that keeps the evil spirits at bay.
Yes. And it also keeps them trapped inside when they try to escape.
That's right. So it's doubling down on can't get in, but you can't get out, I guess, if you're a spirit.
Yeah. And if
which makes no sense.
But a human, the gate turns into brick wall.
That's right. You're locked in. Okay, that's it.
All right. Then for our next section here, first big section, what worked.
What worked? What worked for you? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
I mean, like how you describe the cast as they're the most cliche you could get. I loved it so much. I loved them. It's just like how you put it, in the context of play this at your party. It's just so satisfyingly typical. It's like the kind of movie where it's like the amalgam of all these other movies that you kind of imagine existing in your head. This is like actually it. And it was just so satisfying that it actually exists and isn't just this sort of like non-existent amalgam. You know what I mean?
Sort of. I don't know that I agree with you on how it impacted me.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean.
Right, where it's like we had Demon Wind, which, is similar.
I felt there's so many sort of similarities and vibe sort of things going on.
Something about this casting setup, that it's a house, that it's possession the way it is, I guess that was too. That it's Halloween. It just feels like it's taking even these more, I don't know, just known tropes or ideas and putting them into a pot together. It's great. And the cast, I mean, they were just so perfect too. I'll use the cast to curtail into the performances, which then curtails into the dialogue. I loved. Like, you couldn't, I think I'm just so in awe about this kind of like dialogue and acting because it feels like it's the kind of thing you couldn't do if you tried. Like,
that's interesting.
Like Evil Ed feels like it was kind of the, trying to make this kind of movie thing.
Right.
And it just doesn't work. You gotta, I don't know, it has to be sincere to the filmmakers, which this still is.
Well, that's what I kept wondering. I was like, this isn't a purposeful, like, the way that it's done is not, it's not satirical.
Yeah, no, and it's exactly, but it's all the things I love. I don't know what word gets at it best, but I wrote down, all these cheesy, campy, kitschy. Yeah. Like all those. That's what I said, imitable. You can't
Well, one of the
imitate
things is that, and I guess this is a thing that works because it is this style, is that it's written in such a way, the dialogue is written in such a way that no real human being speaks in this way.
Exactly.
It's it's such a style in and of itself that if you like to write in cliche is really difficult. Like, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, it makes me wonder, like, do you think that the writer was accomplishing purposefully?
I don't think so. Okay, you said something really interesting there. How they're writing in cliche. We don't know if it's intentional or not. I think they're just like, you have the this one and the that one, kind of thing. Like, I don't think they're using the word cliche when they write this.
I agree.
But as far as the dialogue and how that interacts with the characters, the cliches, the walking cliches, if you want to call it. It's really interesting because, as you said, the dialogue isn't something, it's not how people talk.
Not at all.
So let's say, for example, I remember it caught me at the beginning. We have this exchange between the little brother, who's the cliche, like bratty little brother.
He
like
calls him a butthead.
Yeah, calling the sister.
It's so good.
And then Sal Mineo or whatever shows up. Sal Romero shows up. And they have he's trying to get the info on where his sister's going to be at the party. And the whole time the little brother is being, he's being sarcastic to her. Why should I help you? But then he has a line that goes something like, why should I help my beloved? Or why should I betray my beloved sister kind of thing.
Right.
And it's not sarcastic, him calling the sister he picks on beloved. It could be, but forever, it's sort of like, who knows what it was written as intent, what it was written as to be, if it was sarcastic or not, the little brother calling the sister beloved. It sounds, it's as if it just has a like jokey feel to it. And then and then the way he actually performs the line, it's not like he's being sarcastic at all. It's just, but it's all under this like stereotype delivery system of, you think I'm going to do this? Why would I betray my beloved sister? Like,
it's the same way that cartoon writing often is, right? Like, it is a cartoon. It's a caricature. It's not even trying to be realistic.
No, but I'm just trying to get it. There's a really interesting disconnect between the performances and like the sort of non-intent of the lines. That's just so satisfying to me because you're just like watching this actor, like, I don't know, just double down in some area that's really just appealing and fascinating.
Yeah.
I like could not get over the dialogue. Like anytime they spoke in this movie, I just loved it. I was so into it.
I kind of understand why you're into it.
But
I kind of don't.
It extends from the dialogue too. Like, it's in addition to like
yes.
the character actions and how they look. Like the beginning when
they're so off.
The two girls who are throwing the party are like robbing the liquor store, and one of them's like flashing from behind to like the two workers at the store. But the two workers, it's like. Like you said, maybe as a cartoon, I always make that it's like an early comic book comparison or something. It's just they're such non-people the way they're like staring at her and the way she carries out stealing everything. But there's just something so fun about seeing real people like plug into this mode, whether it's action, dialogue, character, non-character. I love it.
Yes, it's interesting because we've now experienced many sort of levels of, oh God, how do you describe this? Like, we've watched the original versions of this, the ones that thought that they were being serious in, like, I would say like the 50s and 60s, kind of did this, but earnestly. And so what it feels to me like is that this is people who grew up in the 50s writing a movie with the attempted depiction of what kids today are like, but they're sort of missing or nailing, I guess, this heightened sort of non-real version of that depiction of kids.
Right, as if they're taking their kids' sensibilities from 50s, 60s or whatever and like applying that sort of level of simplicity of or like one-dimensionalness
right
to these, if you want to call them characters.
Because like if you go watch like a middling procedural from like 1960, it has this kind of stilted, not real human dialogue stuff. It's its own weird genre of dialogue.
Yeah.
And this kind of has that feel to it. And then, 30 years later, we see something like The Dead Don't Die, which is essentially making kind of a reference to this.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Yeah. That's a reference. Dead Don't Die is referring to then those 50s, 60s films. This is caught somewhere in between.
It's very strange.
Where this goes extra mile though, because like let's say those 50s, 60s films, like we had Thing from Another World, which you say maybe the levels that the characters exist are the same, but the dialogue's like really snappy and engaging.
That's right. So this feels way more like the distinction to me is TV dialogue of that era versus film dialogue, which is, interesting in and of itself.
It's funny though, because like
beach blanket bingo kind of style stuff, where it's like, oh, that's how teenagers talk. But it's like nobody has ever talked that way. No, like ever.
It's just this.
But
this
it's
is how people are.
So it's like these weird layers of like era, dependent on who's writing it and what their sense of reference is for themselves, I guess.
The line that these actors, whatever the character's direction rides, it doesn't seem like they know, like those old things too. There's a way to sincerely do those kinds of level of characters, like where you're still putting a real performance behind it in ways. But this film, it always simultaneously goes between maybe effectively doing that and the more like obvious having to react to something horrible scenes, but then also just totally like they have no idea how to deliver this weirdly written piece of dialogue.
Right.
But it's so fun to watch them try and just because it's still like it's like unique to them. I don't know.
That's true. That's true. I will get behind the idea of watching the actors try to, I guess I'll use the same word, earnestly say these lines. Like they're trying, but what it comes off as is pretty what we would largely consider just bad acting, but it's not bad in a way that makes you or makes me upset, which is really interesting.
Well, it shows you, it's a good example of acting is all like, what's the motivation? Because it's a sort of when the motivation is confused is when it feels so weird. But it's also, it's really in that way.
It fits in line with just the overall vibe of the movie.
Well,
it's so close to satire. Like, it's so close. But I don't, it's this other thing.
Well, yeah, because it feels like, this isn't really giving them credit, but it feels like it, in whatever they're doing, they stumble upon these moments that just, these horror moments that through the context of this like super typical Evil Dead ripoff story, like that, these moments of just inspired moments, I think are so good. Like the standout midpoint sequence. You know what it is. Anytime there's anything like this in a film, it's always my favorite sequence, Tim.
Do I know what it is?
Yeah, I said there was a similar one in what's a recent one that we watched?
Is it the sex scene?
No.
The eyeballs?
Anytime, Tim, there's been a dance scene.
Yeah, sure.
We have
strobe lights, baby.
Angela's dance. Yes. Angela's dance, which is basically like it's the strobe light scene of horror films. It's just like they made a 5-minute sequence basically just on like, oh, well, what if we get a strobe light?
Yeah.
But it's amazing. First, it starts with it's possessed Angela before, her face changes or whatever. She's giving this, God, it's I guess it's a seduction dance, but it's like she's also just so into like herself in the moment. And it goes from then the strobe light comes on after a first sort of like setup by the fireplace dance. But her performance, it's like for all that she wasn't able to do in giving a sincere performance in the dialogue, which I feel like you get the sense maybe she was frustrated by that based on how incredible of a dance performance she gives here. It's like this. And I mean, it's important to note too, the first 2 minutes of that dance, there is no music. Right.
It's just her dancing.
Amelia Kincaid as Angela Franklin. She gives it her all, though. It's like a truly incredible performance she gives of just when you watch someone who's a dancer who's completely like lost themselves in the dance. And it's just, it's beyond just like a seduction thing, how it's kind of framed here. It's, I don't know. It's watching an art form. It's really getting caught up in it. It's really incredible to watch. And then when we get the strobe light enters into it and the music does kick in, Tim, like the music, it was just as amazing. It got like really intense. I swear this whole scene was really trippy. Like it was different from the rest of the film. It got at this genuine, I don't know. It had this combined with the power of her dance, the discordantness of the sparse electric guitar and scraping sounds and all this stuff. The strobe light effect where you have like people popping in and out. I thought it was incredible. It felt like the sort of those standout dream sequences in a lot of horror films. It felt like that to me.
No, I'm with that.
And it has the great ending too, of course, where it ends with biting Stooge's tongue out.
Yeah, that's probably one of the better gags too, in my estimation.
Well, let's go through the other gags then. I think they're all pretty great. We have the eyes getting gouged out with the
Yeah.
demoness on top of him.
Yeah, I always
During
like,
the sex
I always like
scene.
one of those.
Which was
Good
so
eye
great.
gouge.
Just what made that scene though is, I mean, the eye gouge itself was great, but then what made it as a scene too was like she's saying, "Don't look at me," right?
Yeah.
But then
Don't look at
yeah, the way it changes to the demon voice, like I thought, "Don't look at me." I thought the demon's looks and voices in this, they were actually really creepy. I don't know. I liked the design and performances underneath the demons.
Yeah, sure.
When their eyes change, they're
Mhm.
floating down the hallway.
I like the floating.
Yeah. Ugh, it's great. I don't know. I thought it was actually genuinely pretty creepy moments, how the makeup looked. Because that's another example of where they aren't being stifled by this weird dialogue, where the
Right.
actor can just summon evil on their part, as an actor does when playing a possessed person.
Yeah.
And they did it effectively. And then, of course, the other gag that I feel like is a famous one a lot of people remember from this movie is the lipstick through the nipple,
Yeah.
but in a magic demon sense where there's no blood. It just kind of ploofs right through.
Just a thing to do.
Yep. Yep. It's when you're putting the lipstick on the rest of your face and chest, you just end with bloop, pushing it right in there.
Well, you got to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to, stow it.
Right.
What else? I like the coffin. Well, they really do. The Asian woman. Oh God, what was her character's name?
Franny.
They do her dirty because
She could have had.
she gets a non-death, and I think it's disappointing.
I wonder, she gets her head broken or her neck broken.
Yeah.
I wonder if originally they were going to like twist her head off and they
That'd be cool.
didn't have the time or budget to do that, because that would have been great. But I agree, it was unfortunate.
Yeah, she's kind of thrown away in just a nothing death, and then the coffin arm slamming is fun.
Yeah.
Although, well, whatever. I wanted to actually see the arm like getting slammed and coming apart.
I thought we were going to see that.
I really
too.
thought that was going to happen, because later, one of my favorite moments of the entire movie happens when that the severed arm, dismembered arm,
Yeah.
grabs hold of Judy's leg, and she ends up kicking it across the room, and it's perfect.
Right. The moment you see it there, just like holding onto her and the back of it's being held up by the string or
Yep.
whatever. I thought of you with that part. Like, you'd like that.
I did.
That was so good.
Boy, did I ever.
Any other, specific gags, deaths?
I mean, Sal's death is, it's okay. Like, it's a stunt,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like a stunt. What I mean by that is it looks like a very quintessential 80s TV stunt. Jump off the roof, land on the crash pad stunt. And it's shot in that, like, I don't know, they probably slowed the film down by 10%, to give it a little airiness as they fall.
Yes. I love any good slow motion falls. I'm always a sucker for.
Yeah.
Like when Judy's falling at the end,
Yeah.
she's falling like the 8 feet and it switches to like, ah.
Yeah.
That
Yep. So who else? Are we missing a death?
What about Jay Jansen, the boyfriend? What happens to him? I forget.
He's the eyes. He's the eyes. I think that's everybody who dies. Yeah. Obviously the other people. Well, I guess. Yeah, Angela and Suzanne don't really die, which is interesting. They just get possessed, and then I guess they're dead.
Yeah. And then we do have some make it to the end. I like that escape sequence where it's like, this is so funny in this movie too, where we have it's Alvin. No, Roger. Alvin is the actor. It's Roger and and then Judy, right? Making it to the end. So they're trying to make it over the brick wall, and all of the demon friends, they're there grasping at her, but can't quite get her down for some reason.
Yeah.
And then Roger, to keep us in suspense, he makes it to the other side of the brick wall. And it's so funny because I just loved this. Like, he's not really like, oh, should I help? Or what am I going to do? And what is he going to do? He just kind of like plugs his ears and like looks away as if he can't stand hearing her death or
he
something.
He spent a lot of the movie like cowering in different spaces.
Yes. And then, of course, though, he appears again on the wall, rescuing Judy just in time out of nowhere. It was really funny.
I think
fun.
my favorite part about that sequence is that when they shot it, they clearly shot, a setup where it's sort of a close up on him on the top of the brick wall. So he's like laying prone on it. His face is kind of, pressing against it because he's reaching over the edge. And they cut to that quite a few times when he's trying to pull her up the first time.
Yeah.
And then he falls off. And the next time we see him, they just used the footage from the previous setup, right? Like they just insert this exact same position, exact same shot to depict a thing that's happening later, which it's an efficient thing to do, but like maybe change his position up just a little bit so that it doesn't just look like we're cutting back to a previous moment.
That's what was so funny, though, when it cut back. That's exactly why it was so funny when we cut back to it. It was more than just like he's saving the day. It was kind of like, oh, we're back here again. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of stuff, there's a lot of filmmaking stuff that like I would generally say is bad filmmaking. But in this, it's the movie, so how do you say it's bad, right? I mean, it's technically maybe not, but it's...
Well, that's why this section is what worked.
Yeah.
It still worked for me.
It worked for me that there's this thing that happens fairly often in this movie, and it's an editing, I guess, technique. I don't know if technique's the right word. It's an editing choice where... Typically, at least in modern editing, I mean, this is true forever in editing. You don't want a lot of air necessarily between somebody finishing their line and then you cut to the other person who's responding. You don't want a lot of air in between the cut and the response because we don't pause that way in real life, generally speaking, and it feels stilted and weird. So it's like, if you said a thing to me, right, just say a thing.
Tim, how's it going?
Cut. It's going fine, right? Like you wouldn't you would never have that. You wouldn't cut to me waiting to answer you after you finished saying what you're saying, right? You could cut to me and overlap the dialogue while you're looking at me waiting to answer so that once you finish, I can naturally respond. But this movie just throws that out completely. And so often you have a character finish a line, you then cut to the other character and you wait for them to respond. It even happens in scares where like they'll show somebody jumping out and being like, rah, and then they'll cut to the other character and there will be like maybe a second of nothing, and then they react, and it's super weird, and like it's a style. I don't know. It's just makes for this. It's almost like my first thought when I saw it was maybe they're just trying to lengthen the movie.
Yeah, I wondered.
Like they're padding out the movie by keeping these little beats in there. But then I was like, man, I don't think that's it. I think that they just think that somehow adds to this, like either the vibe or like the weirdness of it. I don't know. Whatever they thought, it works for this movie. And I'm sorry, it would not work. I've seen it in other movies, and you usually go, oh, that was a mistake. Like they missed that edit.
But here, it's just all part of his
character
just a part of it. Charm.
I thought the first time I was like, "Oops, no!" It just keeps happening. I was like, "Oh, they've made a decision."
You gotta get they did try in some areas there where they come up with some fun stuff. Like they did the classic like camera at the center of the table, like rotating in the middle
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah. Listen, so that brings me, actually, that's a good way of getting to the next thing. The reason I believe that that's very purposeful is because there is a ton of really good camera work in this movie, and it's lit really well. Like, it's super crisp. It generally, I mean, there's campiness to it, but it's not poor quality at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had a budget. They had people who knew how to light and shoot and set deck and all of those things, like, really well. So it's not a, and maybe this is why I don't like it in a way, because if you have a movie that is campy, I'm so used to the campiness being overlapping with low budget, right? That the part of what makes it campy is that they had to make concessions and work around things and like be clever about it. And the low budgetness is what is adding to the camp. This is not low budget. Like, maybe it was lower budget, but like this is it's a really clean movie. Like, they had enough money to make it look good.
They did. I think, though, in other areas, what you're saying is definitely present, though, from like the opening title sequence, which just feels like.
But I think these are all style choices. Here's what.
Wait,
oh,
one,
okay.
well, then one more. I don't see how you could see it with this one. The matte painting of the house that I mentioned earlier when they're driving up to it.
I think this is style.
Looked horrible, but looked good because it was funny and perfect for it.
Here's my theory. My theory is that they are trying to. They have money. I tried to find the budget and I couldn't find it, and that's telling to me too. I think they had money and they are attempting to make money off of the idea that this is a low budget horror film. That it's like what's a good example of this in it? It's like corporations trying to look like mom and pops.
I don't know, but at the same, like, lights are relatively cheap for making this kind of movie.
I mean, that's sort of not my point. My point is that there's the quality belies the content.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this is a bad thing necessarily. In a weird way, it kind of worked for me. But that was my take on it. I was like, oh, this is a different thing.
I think it's overall pretty well done in how it's shot. I just feel like that's just a matter of the DP that they happen to get in the team.
That
like, it can be kind of outside of budget, whatever, you know.
But I don't know. The part of also why I think this is because of the content.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and because of the time. It's 88. And there's something about I feel like they're going, it's almost what Evil Ed tried to do, but they did it a little more smoothly. They didn't go full into camp. They were like, hey, let's just hit the sweet spot.
And that was Evil Ed, you said, not
Evil Ed.
Dead.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I just think maybe this should have been in things of note. I don't know. Because I don't really have much more that worked for me.
Well, you liked how it was shot, I guess.
I did, though. I was like kind of impressed a bunch of it. And I was like, this seems weird for this movie.
Yeah. Strobe light scene, man. What did you think of the bookends? Did those
I
work for
found
you?
the budget. 1.2 million in 88.
Great.
Yeah.
Did the bookends work for you?
Oh my God. No.
It was so silly, though.
It's too much. I just think it's stupid.
Me too.
But not stupid good.
I mean, I just like stupid, I guess.
There's this really fine line between stupid insulting and stupid good for me.
And the bookends were stupid insulting.
Kinda. Where I'm just like, no.
But it's
I was like, who's this for? That's kind of what kept happening to me.
It was just like how it takes place on Halloween. It felt kind of like Trick or Treat, where it's just kind of these like just a little spooky Halloween flavor to kind of bring us in and out of it.
It's too tongue in cheek for me. I think that's the problem with it.
Mm.
Like, there's a really fine line. I don't know,
with the wife at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, ho, got him.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. This is an interesting thing. Like the fine line that can be walked of camp and willing suspension of disbelief, where it's like, obviously, I mean, it is pretty amazing that a full razor blade is like working its way out of his neck, but like, it's too far for me of like, it's too absurd.
Yeah.
Where if...
but that's what's good about it. It's like,
I guess, but it's like missing something to me.
We have this whole setup of like the urban legend, the razor blades and the apples, and the guy gets his own comeuppance with it. But it's like, we're like, well, okay, yeah, so you just kind of bleed a little in the mouth or whatever. But then it's like, no, here it is. It's
Right.
full on like veins bleeding, protruding from his neck. It's all gnarly. It was great. And then the wife to be indifferent. It's like, it's set up so well with their like character relationship.
I like all of that. I'm not against that. My problem is that it's missing just a nuance. It's missing one little piece of nuance that sells the absurdity.
We're still in what worked here, Tim. So
I know.
You want to get into what did not work then with that?
Sure.
All right, here we go. After all that worked, here is what did not work.
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
Okay, so when you're selling absurdity, I personally think for it to work for me, this is a taste thing, so whatever, but for it to work for me, I think that there is nuance in selling absurdity. So, for example, I think this gag completely could have worked with one very simple added line. Not even line and action. Nuance. When she sets the pie down, or whatever it is, pastry, whatever the fuck she made, if he takes a bite and goes, oh my God, this tastes amazing. So he has a shift, and then he takes a gigantic, huge bite, like too big of a bite, like shovels it into his mouth, and she goes, you might want to slow down. Like, there's nuance to that, right? Like, there's sort of this tongue, like you're adding to the tongue in cheek, but you're supporting the next beat by having it be kind of ironic, right? Like, he's scarfing down this thing and she's telling him to slow down, knowing that there's razor blades in there. So when the razor blade thing happens, it's supported by this little touch that we get behind because it is absurd. He like if he were to shove the whole pie in his mouth, he doesn't even have to say, like, it could, he's being a jerk. So you could go in that direction of him being like, she was like, can you know, he could say, I don't want your stupid pie. And she could be like, oh, come on. Like, why are you such a jerk? And he's like, oh, you want me to, I'll eat the pie. Fine, I'll eat it. And like shoves the entire thing in his mouth and chews real deliberately. Like, there's nuance in that depiction that then gets us to the absurdity of the thing and is supported. Like, we feel the catharsis of him having his neck, you know, chewed up by the razor blade. Without those little touches, it just feels flat and absurd to me. And so, like, I guess what I'm getting at is I want more of those little touches, especially in an absurd film. And I think that's actually what makes movies like Evil Dead work so much, is that there is this underlying almost acknowledgement of the campiness. Like that's what makes Bruce Campbell so good, is that he's kind of nodding and winking while fully committing to the absurdity of it. Like the scene in Evil Dead 2 when he kind of loses his mind and he's like dancing with the lamp and the deer head on the wall is laughing like that. He's fully in, but we feel this sort of it's supported by a nod to the absurdity.
I think, yes, Sam Raimi and co, the sort of filmmakers, they can make something at the level where they're thinking things through more on that level that sounds like
Sure.
you want.
Yes.
But this is just a completely different kind of appeal for me. Like you said, it's like, what did you just say? You said it's flat and simple, or wait, what? You said something
essentially
like that. That's what I like about it. It's just like I don't know. I just don't compare them in their mind. They're very different appeals for me.
I think this is
kind of
generational.
Mm-hmm.
That moment feels like an episode of Goosebumps to me. And I don't think those are interesting or appealing because I was overaged for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you're like pocket Goosebump, right? Like for real. And so I think that that's a big part of where the taste lies, is that there's a generational thing. Like, you know, our friends, well, Mo in particular she's your age, right? I think you guys are right about the exact same age. And she's like, I love this movie. She loves, like, I think I think it's generational. She likes, or your generation, we're what, 8 years apart or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the next thing.
Oh,
where you were at the younger age when you were seeing some of these things.
Yes, I can see how that, I feel like that is a trend that can be true for the kind of appeal that this film is. Yet at the same time, I feel like I've talked to people, it feels weird, say in your older generation, whatever. If
Ancient.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself a Gen Xer or like an X Millennial is the in between?
Yeah, I'm in that in between 4 or 5 years, whatever.
But
so
there's something about being closer to like when these people were around that I feel like this film would have a different appeal for. Like, I don't know. There's a punk aesthetic to it all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe those reasons you're giving, there's like a divide there. But as far as this film in particular, I feel like could hold specific appeals for people your age or older.
I think there is something, maybe this is just me actually, but when I think about nostalgia, my nostalgia is so rooted in things prior to 84.
Mm.
And I think that's because like some really critical like visual ideas or like identity ideas were formed, right? Like I was born in 78, the end of 78. So really like 80 to 84 is that super influential developmental pocket.
I see what you're saying. That year, that's the Nightmare on Elm Street year, and I think that that Nightmare on Elm Street represents a sort of it feels like a good transitional point between the 70s and the 80s.
I think you're
like,
right.
Aesthetics, because you think like Poltergeist 82 feels like a 70s movie still.
Yep, exactly. Like everything that those people are kind of wearing, driving, just the aesthetic, like all of the sort of style, even the style of the archetypes, like how they're kind of framed, reminds me like so I also grew up, I moved from the Midwest in 84. So I left this fairly specific kind of region and moved east.
Right.
And so like, I think that helps kind of enhance the nostalgia of not only the era, but the region as well. Like Southern Indiana in 1982 is a pretty specific thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like the commercials that we had, like those things, and being in that age range of development when you're seeing those things for the first time, right? You're absorbing them for the first time. So they are so imbued in some sort of like thing that your brain is processing that, I think the strength of the nostalgia is so tied to the era that you were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yet, though, you're going on about, and I feel like I've observed with you your love of all like 80s movies. Like when we get into, New Year's Evil was like 1980. What am I thinking of? I don't know. Just like In Search of Darkness, like even all the mid and late 80s movies. Like I feel I thought you were into all that.
I am, and I'm not. I mean, it's kind of, it'd be interesting actually to go through and kind of pick it, just do like a binary comparison, be like yes, no, and see where the years land.
You probably preference for earlier 80s over
I would
later
assume
80s.
so, but it'd be an interesting experiment. I could do it.
It's true. Like I do have a certain or films of the era of like there's this sweet spot of like late 80s to early 90s films like that just I hold near and dear, or there's something about, again, you can't make it if you tried today style of like Demon Wind, Dolly Dearest. A lot of, Society, stuff like that. I just love.
It is an interesting thing. I think that stuff for some people carries even more weight, and maybe that's just me. Like maybe I'm way more, I don't know, affected by these little things. I don't know.
Well, what else can you say didn't work?
Well, I mean, I guess I kind of said it's just like there's the kind of the lack of like an underneath story bummed me out because I was kind of excited to get.
We had a little of the relationship stuff of like you were where her boyfriend isn't actually interested in her.
Mm-hmm.
There was that.
I guess. I mean, that's really thin.
But something more. There's a little background of. Wasn't it like the Native Americans on this land, yada, yada? There was that whole speech.
The 30 seconds of like, yeah. Yeah. But it feels, I don't know. It doesn't work. It's the right idea, but we don't explore it enough. And it certainly doesn't impact any of the action.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my problem. That's really it. If you're going to have lore, let's have it come back around somehow. Like have it help you solve the problem. Have it.
No, I thought there was going to be the big like set because they set it up so obviously at the beginning. Oh, there's a underground stream around this whole. And I thought there was going to be this like underground stream sequence.
Absolutely. You got to run away from the demon, have the demon itself manifest and chase them through an underground sewer, stream, tunnel, something.
Mm-hmm.
That would be awesome. I would be so into it. But instead we got this, projection map of a weird, lame, not non-designed demon.
I like that demon, how that looked, of the weird face, the weird it's skeleton face monster.
My problem
thing.
is that it's lacking a defining feature for us to latch onto.
It was weird. I don't know.
It's weird, but it's like when I try to think of it, I'm like, what do I remember?
No, but
Nothing.
I will give you that as far as the ending, it fell a bit into the like they run here, then they run here, then they run there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that like, my recommendation 1 or 2 episodes ago, I did a House of 1,000 Corpses. That's like all about that exactly. It goes to this weird new terrain, underground lair area. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the closest they kind of came to like, we're, in basic story structure, you have this idea of like, you start with the thesis, you go into the antithesis, upside down world, and then the third act is your synthesis of those two things, right? That's basic thing. There is no synthesis really in this movie. We kind of go from the thesis to the upside down world and then just stay in upside down world the whole time.
Mhm.
That's it. We don't really get to another thing that kind of encapsulates the broader whatever, even if it's like, I don't know what it would be in this movie. I think that's a big failing, right? What's the theme of the movie? Is there a theme? Don't be a teenager?
Just the fact that it's not on that level, though, is so refreshing to me. I love it.
Okay.
It's just put it up there. It's all great. Well,
But it's not great.
No, and I agree with you.
What you like is that it's not great.
Yeah, but as far as I do agree, like the last third, it feels like it's where we're expecting a little something more clicking together set piece wise, even if it doesn't building on a clear theme, just some sort of escalation or differentiation.
I think the theme is teenager from the filmmaker's point of view. This is what I think they think the theme is. Teenagers are assholes, but so are old people.
Yes.
So it's like, wait,
everyone's an asshole.
Everyone's an asshole.
No, it's interesting with movies like this. There is where you feel like there is a certain cynicism towards people, but at the same time, like so much love for people comes out in the filmmaking and itself.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I don't know, man. It's shallow, I think, is what I would overall kind of land on. It's just shallow. It never really digs anywhere below a surface cliche in any department. It never really goes somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard for me to like a thing that is on that level, even if it is dumb fun.
Can we, do you have anything else that did not work, or can I use that transition to things to note? I want to ask a follow-up question.
The only other thing I have is that if you were to put a lighter in front of a gas line like that, I don't know this to be true, but I feel like you'd just explode.
Actually, that was a highlight for me too. I loved her like using it as a flamethrower. I can think of like 3 examples. Anytime you get like the heroine shooting a flamethrower like thing at the bad guy,
That's
I'm
fair.
Such a sucker for it.
Okay.
Great.
Cool.
All right. For our next section then, wrap it up with things of note.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
All right. So I guess my follow-up question for you, what you were just saying, and this isn't working, or it's still not totally good, like this and Demon Wind. I don't know, like what, is there anything on this level where like you can get the appeal that I'm describing, where you can have one of these movies where it does work for you, but it's still not on the level of like an Evil Dead, where the filmmakers are at a certain, have a certain sensibility of thinking things through? Like, is it just that you just happen? I mean, I get it. You just prefer those movies, but at the same time, I separate them in my head. It's different appeal for me. So, is there anything out there you've seen that's like a 1988, close to like Demon Wind, Night of the Demon, that for some reason it has like even like a Troll 2 or something, because that goes so is this so consistently amusing?
Maybe the closest I could say, but they fall closer to my distaste of that style would be Reanimator or Return of the Night of the Living Dead.
I know you loved From Beyond.
I did love From Beyond, but that feels like an artist's thing.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, that's interesting. Clearer vision is what I think it comes down to. I don't think Night of the Demons has a clear vision. I don't really think that
Demon Wind
has a clear vision. It has a vision. but not a clear one. But I think that From Beyond has a very clear vision.
Okay, but you take an extreme example of like a Troll 2 where...
God, I don't even remember Troll 2.
Well, you should always be
Is
up
that the
on
one
it.
that starts with the sorcerers?
Yes.
Okay, I guess I kind of remember it.
You
I
gotta
don't
see it
remember where
again.
it goes.
Anyway, well, forget that. You don't know it.
I remember Troll.
Troll, the first Troll is great.
Yeah.
I love both Trolls.
The first Troll's the one that has
Harry Potter Jr.
Harry Potter
The character,
Jr.
his name is Harry Potter.
Oh, the dad is Harry
The
Potter.
dad's Harry Potter Sr.,
Yeah.
the son's Junior. We have
But
Julia
it's
Louis-Dreyfus.
It's fucking Atreyu. It's the kid from the Neverending Story.
Is it? I know it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus is in it. Sonny Bono's in it. Anyway, this is not about Troll. This is about Night of the
Wouldn't it be
Demons.
fun if it was?
Well, then we should do a Troll, a double feature. That'd be fun. But for now, other things of note. Tim, the title card mentioned at the beginning.
I like that.
That whole sequence.
I think that's really cool.
So yeah, it was great. It's fun. Animated,
design.
all that. Apparently it was very difficult for them to do. You know, it's all practical, it has all these different elements on top of one another. So the original title of this film and the working title through most of the production was Halloween Party.
Okay.
But they thought it was some legal thing about them having to say, you know, this is definitely different from Halloween and not building on that. They're just safer going with something else.
That's a terrible title.
Right? Night of the Demons is way better anyways.
Seriously.
But what was great though, so Halloween Party, they made that full animation sequence, the opening titles with that original title.
Oh,
so
shit.
what they did, they read it like, oh shit, what do? We changed it. You can't redo it all. So all they did, they basically just pasted the new title over it. So like
I noticed that it had a nice, like, what do you call that? That the drop shadow is just a solid.
Yeah. So luckily, Night of the Demons was plenty big, and you can see the demons is like really big in the opening title. Yeah. That was to cover the title Halloween Party on the literal opening title.
Wow.
This is so fun because you think nowadays it's just, you just type in a different thing or whatever, you know, it's all digital, or you erase it, draw it again. But this is just, no, it's a physical thing they spend a bunch of money making, and last minute have to come up with that fix. I thought that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
can't really say that I have anything. I don't know. I mean, just...
That was my big
It made
one.
money. Tell you that much.
Well, enough for...
It tripled its budget.
Tim, there's a second one and a third one and a remake.
That's right.
We could have a whole...
I wonder what the remake is like.
We could have a whole Night of the Demon quadrilogy.
Is anybody... Oh, Edward Furlong is in the remake.
So is her name's Monica something?
Monica Keena.
Yeah, from Undeclared. I like that show.
Oh, I never watched that. Oh, Shannon Elizabeth. You remember her?
Of course.
She's an American Pie scary movie person.
What about her? She's
the lead, it looks like.
Well, great. Maybe we'll watch it someday.
Yeah.
And parts 2 and 3. I don't know if Tim's going to rush out to rent those.
I don't know about that.
I certainly would love to. Well, what are you going to put on in your party after Night of the Demons? Demon Wind?
Probably.
Okay. Great.
That sounds about
one
right.
of those Giallo movies.
Ooh, yeah.
Cool. All right.
Have we watched Inferno yet?
No, that's sort of last.
That's
on
the
our...
last one. Okay. I'd like to watch
that. Great. If that's it for Night of the Demons, we'll wind down here with our RecommenDEADtions for the week. Tim, would you like to recommend Dead to myself and our listeners? Anything?
Well, I'll tell you what I don't want to recommend Dead is The Conjuring. I know we talked about it last time.
Ooh.
Loki. So the new Marvel series, I guess. Yeah. On Disney Plus has arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Loki. It's about Loki, you know, Prince of Asgard. Thor, Odin's son's brother, Loki Laufeyson.
Loki Laufeyson?
Yeah, because Laufey, who is a frost giant, is actually Loki's dad. Don't worry about it, Ryan. It's not important.
I'm worried about it, Tim.
Anyway, it's very cool. The style of how it's shot and like it's just cool. It's time travel. It's dimensional stuff. It's like so many things that I love, and it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's, you know,
does it plug in to all that well? Are there fun things?
Yeah.
Do you think someone who isn't all in it could enjoy it?
Yeah, probably actually. It gives kind of context of things that happened in the movies enough for you to be like, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
But man, its style is so cool. It's got this like retro, God, what would that be? I guess that's like a 70s analog kind of design style that's really cool. Anyway, I think it's cool. The new episode is out today. I need to watch it later tonight.
I still want to watch WandaVision.
You should watch that.
That was good as a whole.
Yeah, it's fun.
Great. I am going to recommend Dead. I revisited per another recommendation from a friend. Gave it a second shot at both Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Oh, man.
After seeing them in theaters when you're just kind of like expecting a new Alien movie and they're so weird.
Yeah.
They're just kind of weird and whatever, and you forget about them. But I watched them again. I think they're amazing. Both of them.
Okay.
The weird that they are is like really unique and cool. The characters, like you do get involved enough that these death sequences are really amazing and gruesome that happen in them. It's just, it's an original weird world that like Ridley Scott made. And it's kind of, I guess I'm still not into the stuff as far as like how it directly connects to Alien. Like, I don't know, that's kind of weird. But if you really can like look at it as its own thing, I was really into it. I thought there was, really eerie, interesting, moody, interesting ideas, were tense. I really was into them. Both
That's cool.
Prometheus and Alien Covenant are my recommendations.
I went back with the sole intention as an exercise to break down Prometheus to see why I thought it didn't work. And to me, I really like the first 2/3 of that movie so much. And I was like, well, then why doesn't the last third work? And I came to this conclusion that there's like one, if not two scenes missing from Prometheus that the audience needs for the movie to work. And they just aren't there. And I find it really fascinating, like why that may be, because it could be for so many reasons. But we see movies where we've said that, right? Where we go, oh, it's so close, but they just did it. They needed this, like one little thing for us to go, holy shit. And I just love, as an exercise, I just think it's so fascinating when you can identify it, or you think you can. At least I have it, like my theory that there's an identifiable almost moment that doesn't happen in Prometheus. And then what that brings me to conclude is at least ponder, is like when you are the writer and director, or either, and you have this clear vision of what you're depicting, and you are being obtuse because you don't want to hand feed the audience. There's this it seems, a very fine line. And like, it's fascinating to me that a movie can be made or broken in a lot of ways by that singular decision for almost it can come down to a moment that you withhold. And we say this about the reverse being like, oh, if they had hand or spoon-fed, what am I trying to say? Yeah, spoon-fed us this thing, we wouldn't like it. So it's like, I just think it's fascinating that like...
Or we didn't like it because they did spoon-feed.
Exactly. Like the success of a movie subjectively so often can lie in just this like moments. And maybe that's what's interesting and fascinating about filmmaking in
right
as a whole. But
well,
man,
when it does come down, maybe this is where it comes down to taste. Is like, if when in doubt, you have to err one way or the other. I will always be on the obtuse side.
That's interesting, right? Like that's such a taste thing. I feel like I generally would agree.
Mm-hmm.
But for Prometheus, yeah, I was like, oh, all they had to do is say one line in this one spot, and then we know the threat.
But now that it's not that, I don't know. I think it makes a pretty cool double feature of the both of them.
I do too. I think once you let go of, like you said, the attachment of it trying to like tie in and like the expectation of an alien movie, they are fun.
I mean, how many like
and the characters do some dumb shit in Covenant in particular, but whatever.
It's as if they used its connection to the Alien franchise as a way to convince the studio to like give the money to make an original sci-fi film.
Yeah,
which is just we're at such a lack of now.
I know.
Like,
I've got 2 sci-fi concepts that I would. Oh man. Someday.
Well, hopefully the market is in your favor.
That'd be nice.
Well, next we got to decide what we're watching next week.
Okay.
You got our hat for us?
Sort of.
Okay, great.
But not really.
Is it your turn?
Sort of. No. No, it's your turn.
It's my turn. Right.
I'm almost certain it's your turn.
All right. So I'll tell you when to stop.
Yeah, but hold on. Here we go. Whenever.
Stop.
Oh no.
One of my favorites, Damien Omen 2.
Yes.
You've seen it?
Oh yeah.
Dude, it's been a while. Awesome. My friend who's a listener, Jesse, and I, this was a really big one for us. Really into the
I got
Omen
so
movies.
into the Omen movies at some point. I don't remember how old I was.
Great. Awesome. We'll be able to go on all about our love for it then. Come next week.
Yeah, you should.
At Dismembering Horror. You can find us wherever you found us. We got an email, dismemberinghorror@gmail.com. We got an Instagram. But as I said, you can find us wherever you found us. Our big ask is if you enjoyed being here, why not tell a like-minded friend? That'd be great. But
actually, can you please tell somebody who is not like-minded? just go on and on about it until they tell you to shut up.
And then they'll just have to listen to it and become a horror fan. No, really, though. Either way, we're happy to have you here. We appreciate having you here.
Do we ever?
Great. Well, in closing, be careful when throwing Halloween parties with your friends when you're holding those seances. And thanks for listening.
And we will see you next time. Goodbye.